Gillian Triggs is a poster child for victimhood. Not only because she runs the largest victimhood trolling agency in the country, the Human Rights Commission, but she actively plays the victim card herself. As I mentioned in a previous video, I think the Human Rights Commission would be more aptly named the Human Shakedown Commission, after having squeezed more than $1 million that we know of out of Australians in the last 6 years for offending people. And Triggs is perfect for the role of head of the shakedown agency that polices speech and then extorts apologies and fines, because she herself employs victimology whenever she comes under attack for her frequent misstatements that have been detailed here many times. So in what was hopefully her last appearance before the Senate yesterday, Triggs was at it again. Here's Chris Kenny with the details.
And Gillian Triggs herself went into some of her old routine of playing the victim and also having a go at the media. Let's have a look at this little snippet from her hearing today, where she was asked by a Liberal senator whether she stood by some quotes in the Australian newspaper, in my newspaper, The Australian, just 2 weeks ago. This was a story in relation to the ABC presenter Yasmin Abdel-Magied, who created all that controversy over Anzac Day. And it was put to Gillian Triggs today whether she stood by her quote about that incident, where she had said that it was a relatively minor incident. Have a look at how this transpires.
And I'm just wondering whether the President was reported correctly and whether that is actually her view.
Well, I'd have to take that on notice and see exactly what was said. I certainly wouldn't trust the reporting in that newspaper for being accurate, but I think it may be the gist of what I was saying, if not precise. And the point
One hopes they don't have a tape, Professor Triggs.
That, well, as I say, it was certainly the gist of what I said.
Don't you just love that? There's Gillian Triggs again. She doesn't trust anything she reads in The Australian, has never come up with an example of where The Australian's got anything wrong, but she says it may have been the kind of gist of what she said. And when Senator Abetz just suggests to her, you never know, there could be a recording of that conversation. Oh yes, it was certainly the gist of what she said. In just a couple of seconds, once again, Gillian Triggs became certain that The Australian actually had got it right. It certainly was the gist of what she said. Let's just rewind.
Well, as I say, it was certainly the gist of what I said. So whether it was accurately reported, I would have to examine. But the key point I was making is that the comment was unfortunately made on Anzac Day. It was rapidly apologised for, and I think the response in relation to it has been seriously out of proportion to the mistake that was admittedly made. But my concern has been the rising level of discrimination against Muslims in Australia, and sadly, in particular, against Muslim women wearing the hijab.
And there she goes again. Of course, when she finishes that answer, she just gets into her usual routine of talking up divisions in Australia, telling us that we're becoming more abusive towards Muslim Australians, Muslim women, this idea of Islamophobia again. No evidence. She doesn't come up with any evidence or examples. She just tells us that Australians are nasty, bigoted people picking on Muslims in our communities. We just don't see the evidence of that, but we often hear it from people like Gillian Triggs. She went on to say also that she's a victim and other women are victims. Too many women in senior places are being criticised publicly. Well, if Gillian Triggs did a better job, could hold a line, could get her facts right all the time and run her organisation so it actually looks at discrimination and those who are being discriminated against, instead of running vendettas against people on the racial vilification campaigns, then maybe she wouldn't be criticised so much.
That's right, use the Julia Gillard defence. They're attacking me because I'm a woman. No, as Andrew Bolt said.
Miss Triggs, I don't criticise you because you're a woman. I criticise you because I think you are biased and have said things I don't think are true. And because I think you see racism and sexism and Islamophobia where none exist. And worse, you have a dangerous, dangerous power to shut people up.
And how about that other perennial victim, Yasmin Abdel-Magied, who has a penchant for saying dumb things like Islam is the most feminist religion, or that the Deepwater Horizon oil disaster in 2010 could have been avoided if executives from the companies had been from more diverse backgrounds, or for saying deliberately incendiary things like trying to hijack Anzac Day for her own personal hobby horse causes. Well, she recently came out to say that she'd been treated unfairly over her Anzac Day post. But again, this is someone that doesn't understand that being in the public eye and throwing shit sometimes means that the shit comes back the other way. Well, there was some good news. The taxpayer-funded TV show that she hosts on her taxpayer-funded salary that barely anybody watches is being cancelled. As the only Liberal senior minister that still has his balls intact, Peter Dutton, said,
Yasmin Abdel-Magied's got the punt. She went flying between the uprights yesterday. We won't be seeing her on TV, on the ABC in the future.
Well, that's a good start. One down, many to go.
But we should be careful of celebrating too prematurely, because there's a good chance she might show up somewhere else. This decision has been under consideration for some time and was not to do with any controversy over the presenter. Yasmin was aware the program was under review and we're discussing with her future opportunities at the ABC. Maybe that's spin, maybe it isn't. I guess we'll see. But Triggs and Magied represent the toxic victim mentality which provide, in my opinion, the worst possible role models for young girls in Australia today. So let me leave you with a positive female role model. She's a woman, she's a plumber, and she's a Muslim. And best of all, she doesn't see herself as a victim.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Emma Eros to our show this evening, Mark Latham's Outsiders. Emma, welcome. Great to have you here. You've got an amazing story. A young woman, a mother.
I am.
A practising Muslim.
I am Muslim, yes.
Yeah, and a registered trader. You work as a plumber. It's an amazing story.
I am. I'm a mother. I'm 38 and I have beautiful 2 children, married to an Australian Aussie fella, supporting, I may say, and I have beautiful 2 stepdaughters, and yes, I am a licensed female plumber. What is the solution? I know you're very strong on the immigration issue, border control. How important is that? Well, look, you know, in the 60s, yes, immigration was great. There was no welfare then. People came, they generally came to change their life and make better of it, and they did. They worked, they simulated, they integrated, and it was great. But I suppose having this welfare system and, you know, we have a lot of fraud and fake Australians coming into this country, and I suppose freeloading from our system. And then it's got to stop. We need to do something about it. And if our government will not do a moratorium or have a referendum and allow the people to decide that decision, then they need to, well, they have an opportunity to create positive revenue where anyone that comes into this country, any money given to them, paid back like a HECS-like system, you know. And if they don't learn the language and they've got a set amount of time, well, see you later. Well, David Leyonhjelm, the Liberal Democrat Senator, recently revealed that in Australia, every year, in non-citizen welfare, these are people who are citizens of other countries but living in Australia, we pay $15 billion a year. It's an extraordinary amount, $15 billion. You know, I'm sorry, I don't work my arse off to look after my family, to pay a shitload of tax, excuse my French. No, that's all right. So my government, speak frankly here, my government can go and distribute it to those people who do not deserve it. We have a, you know, homeless people that need to be looked after. We have a list of people that require housing, that needs a home, somewhere to live in. We have, gosh, just veterans that need to be looked after. Doesn't charity start at home? And how's it gone for you? I love it. You know, we hear all this snowflake. I love it. I mean, of course, that women can't cut it in the workplace. A building site must be a pretty rough and ready place at times. How have you found it? I encourage all women to go out and get into the trade industry, because I tell you right now, if you're whinging about your pay, you'll make just as much money and more even in the trade industry. So all this left feminist talk, we mentioned Julia Baird earlier on, you know, a couch-fainting feminist, the real snowflake. People can't say anything negative without her falling to pieces. Yeah. How do you treat that with contempt? Do you think it's sort of a betrayal of the interests of women? Well, I think she's managed to have a little following of women that have the same idea, but it is an excuse. And I don't know, I can't, I just think maybe they need some medication and just suck it up, princess.
Spoken like a real woman. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, or consider supporting the channel on Patreon. See you next time.